Hi, everyone. Welcome to Turning Point. I'm your host, Blaine, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun. And joining me today is Rob Danard with Black Owl Systems. I've known Rob for a while now. We actually met in Texas last year, so we actually had a really fun time there. So it's nice to kind of catch up because we're a little bit of a different city right now. So how's it going, Rob?
It's going really well. Yeah, it was great to sort of take in my first South by Southwest. It's a marathon like any of those are for 10 days, but we got to spend a lot of time there and really dig into that city.
Yeah, it was a lot of a lot of networking, a lot of talking. Uh, it's exhausting by the end of the week, and that's what makes it exhausting. It's like you're just on for the entire week. And but yeah, it was a super fun time. And I know like you've worn a lot of hats. I know you're with a Blackout today, but I wanted to dig back a little bit into like how you got started as an entrepreneur. Where did you first get going?
Well, I originally coming out of university and looked at putting together a system called Alumni United, which, if you look at it back then, evolved into what we see today as Facebook. It was early on just trying to connect, PhD students, alumni, MBA, science share, job share, and really trying to digitize that world for the academic. And then from that, I transitioned into some agency work, owned an agency called Engage Interactive, which we then turned into a contesting and platform solutions, managing all the promotions for Fortune 500. So that took me all over the world and into many different brands, running all of their promotions and all of their contests. And then from
Um,
there, always stayed in the digital space, raising some capital, taking some new initiatives forward, building sort of directorships out. A lot of them got acquired, went public. Some of them just, fizzled away like some technologies do. But, it's been a long run of just always being in the tech space and looking at new and
yeah.
innovative ideas that come to life.
Um, yeah, that's a lot of cool stuff. And I know just you and I talking and looking through your background and stuff, there's you've done a lot of really interesting things. And let's go back to that first one let's talk a little bit about that, like how you got that off the ground and like what, first of all, I guess we know now what social media and everything does, but at the time it was quite a different time. What was sort of that problem that you saw right then, and that you looked to solve, and how you sort of got into that initiative?
Well, I've always been someone that's been very networked and really took a lot of value in how to sort of nurture those networks. And as the sort of digital world started to take place, you started to see that digital world bringing people closer together and in almost sort of an immediate response type platforms. And so I really wanted to connect people that, would come together in a moment in time, 4 years at university and drift off to every other corner of the world and be able to stay connected and be able to really provide value back to each other, whether it was just staying in touch, whether it was, job share, science share, or just passing knowledge back and forth. And then the same thing kind of transitioned into the agency world. Obviously, the agency world is about connecting people to brand and really
Yeah.
bringing product to market and product to audience. And the beautiful thing about contests and promotions, we created a network type contest where I would share it with you and increase my ballots. You would share it and increase your ballots. And it really brought this community and network feel to the way a brand runs a promotion.
It's interesting because so with was that in the agency or was that in that initial sort of networking product?
It really all morphed. The whole entire business is kind of morphed together because we ended up getting into a situation where we had to be our own agency. There wasn't a whole lot of digital back then, and
Mhm.
we ended up getting a tremendous body of work through it because all the traditional ad houses were doing traditional ad work. And always
Yeah.
kind of said, well, this is kind of a fad. Let's just carve out that piece to those guys and let them do it. And we ended up with iMedia Connection down in the US. And we ended up as top digital agency runner up to a small agency inside a big organization, which was NBC Studios. And they created an interactive division. So two
Nice.
Canadian guys from Canada standing up there as the only Canadians and the only Canadian company. And I'm sure they're going, who are these guys? But it was pretty. It was a nice accolade, and it was a big moment to be standing up next to a company that big with the work that we did.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's interesting just talking with so many entrepreneurs. They get into entrepreneurship. A lot of times they see a problem, then they just sort of dive in to try and fix it. But what you're talking about is that secondary thing that entrepreneurs seem to be really focused on is like opportunities like a magnet, right? And so it's, like you said, you see this opportunity and you start building it, and then it starts to morph, and it's all this opportunity and seeing where the real problems are. And it's interesting, like thinking back around that time. It's like what year would this be when you were really starting to make some headway with like in that kind of online marketing space?
Oh, it's been years. It's going back and trying to look at the timeline of digital. We were really at
Yeah,
the forefront. I mean, we were talking about when there wasn't any of these social networks that
yeah.
everything was going from hardwire to wireless, and this whole entire transformation was happening. And we were
Mhm.
we were right in the heart of it, and probably at the right demographic and age to sort of have the foresight to see where
Yeah.
these technologies and where these changes were going to take us.
Yeah, because it was like I can feel that time. I can remember that time. I know there's a lot of people out there that maybe can't, but I remember when, Facebook was fairly young and they had just moved sort of past the colleges and anyone could sign up. And then I signed up because it was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I didn't use it for years because nobody else was on it.
Yeah.
Nobody I knew, right?
Almost
And then all of a sudden,
everybody yeah, almost everybody was introduced through an email that said your friend has signed up and it wants you to sign up too. And it was this like perpetual cascade of one friend introducing another and introducing another. And a
yeah.
lot of that really resonated deeply with me in terms of how to rapidly build networks. And so,
Hmm.
I've done a lot of things too, as building networks for gaming suites, for driving download apps, for driving all kinds of different initiatives around sort of cascading a message from one personal referral to the other.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to get really like selfish in here because I find that super fascinating, but also probably directly applicable to what we're doing because we're always trying to get our name out there. We need more people to know about Dryrun and everything like that. And what is the foundation of that? Like, how do you view that as kind of the linchpins to getting that sort of flywheel effect going? Like, where do you start and what are the key things to get something like that working?
Well, there's no better referral than a trusted referral from either a peer or a friend. So the thing is when you come in and you do great work and you show the impact and value of what you bring to the to the transaction or to the relationship, and I'd just never be afraid to ask for that referral, ask for that endorsement. And if you can sort of keep that chain of endorsement going, it really starts to resonate and starts to carry a bit of an energy on its own. And
Mhm.
it's the easiest way through a door is by someone that helps opening it for you. And that whole referral and that whole networking building is the premise behind all of that.
Yeah. And you've seen this, like the world of, like, from when you started and you there was an opportunity because like you said, you understood where it was going and a lot of people didn't, right? Um, but in a lot of ways now we're sort of there, and it's almost the opposite problem is it's like networks. Um, it's like drinking from a fire hose. Like
Yeah.
you're getting this all the time, and now people are trying to like go, well, how do I pare it down? How do I prioritize? Right. So how did you envision like how this all has gone, and what are some of the challenges and opportunities today in that area?
Well, I think you're completely right. There's no oversaturation of people just being inundated now with messages through every digital channel. And I think it's getting back to that human connection where we actually get in front of the people that we know, the networks that we know, and even going into building these partnership and channel networks where we actually trade and exchange value through the individuals that we know and the referrals that we can do. And it's coming down to that human to human conversation and saying, yeah, let me reach out, let me set up a call for you, let me introduce you through email, let me make that connection personally.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of we're running up against a real issue where you can't be introduced through a digital means anymore. It's just too flooded with people getting inundated with those messages. So and in some instances, it's great that it's coming back to a human to human interaction or a human to human referral versus just trying to use all the digital services as a means to get attention.
It is interesting that it's brought us all the way back to the most basic, like uh, shaking hands and meeting people in person and doing a really personal introduction. Um, and it's only going to get more so because like I know you've already seen, like, as we see it every day, I'm sure you see it every day too. We get messages on email and LinkedIn, and they're written by bots, and you can tell they're written by bots, and they all come from the same template, and they're all like trying to juice me up, and boy, I really admire what you're doing. And like, you don't know anything, and we're looking for people in Edmonton. I'm like, no, you're not. Like,
Yeah.
you're in Chicago. I don't think there's any reason. Like, and it's the same. It's just over and over again. And I think, personally, I think the way you cut through it is a little bit like what you're talking about as well. Just, try and be honest and be human. And some people appreciate it and some people won't. But it's hard because it's so crowded. There's so much noise. And it's like being sort of quiet and respectful and human should work. But also, boy, it's hard to cut through all the noise, any way you cut it, right?
Especially now when you're getting the same canned message 3 times a day from 3 different people, and you're
Yeah.
knowing it's just it's just a bot or someone's utilizing a system to just pump out as many messages as possible, hoping for
Yeah.
that 1% return rate, and it's too much. And now when we go and actually try to have that human touch and put a little bit more personalization to it, it's hard to rise above that noise. And so again,
Yeah.
coming back and doing partnerships with sort of like-minded peers or individuals that are sort of non-competitive but have the same customer, and really sort of working those channels together to exchange those personal touches and those personal introductions. I've found it to be a quantum change for even what we're doing with Black Owl in terms of opening up opportunity. And we've done a major and quantum shift in how we go to market now. And we're seeing the results of that, where before we were utilizing all the same tools and wondering why it's not working.
Yeah, it's amazing that with the volume of messages that come through, the one thing you can guarantee with people is they're terrific at picking out patterns because their brain is equipped. It basically exists. Your eyeballs and your ears and everything to pick out patterns and see if you recognize them. That's
Yeah,
just what
it
it
is.
is. It's like, do you recognize it? Yes, that's a door. I'm going to open it, right? Like, it's 24 hours a day. That's what you're doing. And so when you start seeing emails and messages come through, and you think you're being smart because you're using somebody else's template or whatever, it's like, yeah, you've seen it. They recognize patterns, right? And it's how do you break that? How do you? Because that's the other thing is you don't want to accidentally look like it's a pattern, either,
Yeah,
right?
you don't. Well, and so many people are trying to follow the same formula, whether it's the same coaching, the same book, the same tips and tricks, and you've got like a herd of people going in one direction. And I think it's about figuring out how to go in a different direction in a different way, so
Yeah,
that you do get noticed. And again, people don't see it as a pattern; they see it as something unique that they want to respond to.
yeah. I think like what we've looked at over the last couple of years, and we've done some pretty major changes at Dryrun and the channel we're looking at and everything. And it's some of the things that we've really started to focus on is trying to just do it right, not fast, quality over quantity, learn from our absolute best customers and figure out how do we go find more of them and just be a real person, like
Yeah,
be real and be accessible, right? And it's there's no um, there's no rocket ship here. It's just hustle and do the right things, and you just see progress every day, and it's and I think that's how you're going to win in the long run. That's how you're going to win the long game, is figuring out what is working, for you in your business. And like you said, and it's the same thing with us, is the things that honestly, the things that are working the best for us now and are starting to work like clockwork are completely either opposite or outside the norm of what the experts are recommending.
Yeah.
Let's call them experts with little, you know, finger
Yeah,
quotes,
it's
because
true.
they're all saying the same thing. And like you said, you got to find the space where you can be unique and have a different story, a different approach that's just much more honest, right?
Yeah, and we've looked at that too. Like there's a large grouping of individuals in our business, which is lease accounting, that every day they go into work and they struggle with the problems that surround that job that they do every day. And so we've
Yeah,
been actually diving down and really having conversations with the individuals that's, they've got their sleeves rolled up. They're the ones that are in the trenches and they're fighting through these problems, and we're the ones that have a solution to help solve that problem. And
mm-hmm.
instead of sort of coming in from the top and really having conversations with individuals that carry the budget and ultimately sign the contracts and make the decisions, we're finding that the conversation that we have with those individuals that are in there working hard and struggling through this, that conversation gets lifted up, and it gets lifted
Yeah,
up with the request that, like, can we unlock a budget, can we find a tool and have a tool that makes our life easier. And 9 times out of 10, the company's like, okay, go look at some solutions, come back to us, let's review those solutions, and based on your guys' recommendation, because you're going to use it every day,
yeah,
let's find a path here for you. And so instead of coming through the top, again, like you said, coming into that human side and being relatable to the people that are actually in the problem we're trying to solve, has opened up a huge amount of dialogue that we've kind of missed. And you miss it
yeah,
because, again, when you're reaching out digitally, it's more of, turn on the fire hose and see where it lands. This
yeah.
is a little bit more relatable, and it's responding well.
Yeah, that's we found the same thing. As you're finding the person with the true pain, and like we always say, this is bottom up, and it's a land and expand sort of model. And there's a certain point where it's I still like to talk with people that are responsible for some of the bigger motions in the business, and talk about like this. We can help move the needle, but it's not going to happen unless the people that are actually doing the front line, that are using the tool, are really engaged and they're really buying in, and are really championing what you're doing. And it's it's in some ways it's like it's great because you can identify now kind of who they are, and you know what problem you solve, and it's amazing when you get to talk with them because you can learn so much. They're also kind of hard to get to, and that's the tricky part. And it's, you hope they come and find you, but oftentimes, like with what you guys are doing, they're doing something kind of the hard way,
Yeah.
and they may not take that time to ever look and see if there is an easier way, because up to today there hasn't been, or up to now there hasn't really been much of an option.
No, and it's also about tooling them up with the narrative and the story. Most of them don't want to carry the story up or craft the story or put their hand out and say, "Can we unlock
Mm,
budget? We need a tool." So we
yeah.
really put the value in their hands and really empower them with everything they need to literally just take that business case forward and present the business case. And a lot of what I'm doing now is coming in with these individuals and working and writing and building out the business case for them so that they
Mm,
can carry it up to whoever it is that has to make that ultimate decision to unlock budget and approve these types of projects. And it's amazing when you get in there and you work beside them shoulder to shoulder to build a business case and to create a solution to the problem they have.
mm,
That you can't get better than that.
yeah.
It works every time.
Well, it's interesting. Like, actually, I want to dig into this area a bit, because it's the same, in a way, the same struggles that we have, that you have, is almost like a change management, and it's a digital sort of transformation uh, problem and solution kind of thing. Like our users very rarely are coming from what we consider like sort of the other cloud tool competitor out there. They're almost to a person coming from a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
and we can show them like, yeah, okay, that well, you spent 20 hours in on the last week. We just, I'll show you in like 2 minutes. We'll be further ahead, right? and you can talk to people and all these benefits. And sometimes it's like you can just see them. They're sitting there and going like, you can just see the wheels like, well, it can't be that easy. Like, where's the catch?
Yeah.
No, it can't. There's got to be something. There's got to be, and it's like you're trying to gain trust and credibility, and it's almost like, did we make it too easy? Like, it's such an interesting thing. But I want to kind of go back because we were talking earlier about like when Facebook first came out and when Twitter when Twitter came out, when it launched, I was in the first time I was at South by Southwest, and we met some guy, and they had a big party in one of the things on 6th Street, and they're like, oh yeah, come over to this party, I'll post the address on Twitter. And we looked at each other, you're doing what? He goes, yeah, Twitter, you should get on it. And we none of us had even heard of it at that point. And we're like, what on earth is it? So now we got to download an app to figure out, but that time, what's that?
And how many characters am I only allowed to use? And
yeah, exactly. What the hell? I can't even write anything. It was so bizarre. But that time, that sort of same time frame, like these things come now and it's almost like secondhand or you're just like, yeah, no, I get it. There's something new. Right? But there's this place where that time in business, technology, hardware, software, everything was starting to really catch hold. Because this wasn't that, I know when you were doing this wasn't that long into the tenure of the internet. It wasn't that far past Netscape Navigator. Like you're not that far into it. And, the sort of idea of adopting new technology and digital adoption, the challenges we had then, that's what I wanted to dig into, because it's the same challenges people have now. It's like the basic stuff they've got. But it's like, yeah, now we're moving you in some of the real important tasks, like some of the real depth tasks that you guys are working with. Back then, it was just like Dropbox. You can put stuff in it, right? How did, like, as you got your kind of that marketing agency going, and you were having all of these opportunities, how were you guys kind of embracing technology and sort of making use of it? Because you're on the forefront of it. But what about actually like just internal in your business?
Yeah, internal in the business, we obviously had to sort of, I guess, utilize what we were trying to sell, which was, digital expansion and pushing out initiatives to try and drive brand and get noticed. And for us, we were moving into spaces where we had thought that some of these individuals were already getting there from a technical advancement perspective. Primarily, most of our customers were, every single casino in Las Vegas, every major sports team. We were into every major clothing line. We spent a majority of our time in Toronto, Vancouver, New York, and Los Angeles and Las Vegas. So a lot of these people were moving heavily. And the other thing is, they had big budgets. So they had a lot of experimental dollars to say, let's wade into this new sort of digital world and see what it's all about. And obviously it became an industry that has surpassed anyone's expectations from back then. We were just happened to be the right guys at the right time, where people were not wanting to be distracted with this whole digital thing. And so we got a large body of work, an education by massive budgets and dollars and brands that wanted to throw it in our direction. And we're able to kind of refine what we were doing based on what we were actually trying to sell and who we were trying to sell it to. And again, it was we were building networks where we would take an app, take all of their non-paying clients, because obviously their paying clients were very heavily protected, like gold to the business. And we would take that non-paying customer base, and we would take 30,000 of their customers, create a campaign where it was a referral campaign where we would lock multiple people to the win in the ballot. And in 24 hours, we had 250,000 new signups off a 30,000 base. By the time we were done, we were at about 1.2 million in touches through the whole entire system. And it was the right place at the right time, because it was just this cascading effect. So for us, it was easy. We were able to show a great return back. And of those 30,000 non-paying customers, I don't know what their conversion rate was, but they introduced a whole new audience of business to them that also included paying customers. So
Mhm.
I guess short answer to it is a lot of it was a magical time in history where
Yeah.
everyone was experimenting and learning as we went into this new industry that didn't exist before.
And one of the things that like strikes me there is not only were you on the forefront of these types of marketing campaigns, you're already talking about like these signups, this, that, and the other. The other problem that came up around the same time is how did you guys track all of that data? How did you get the analytic data? Because there wasn't the kind of tools like there's commonplace today on that side, right?
Well, I guess the secret sauce for us is we're a contest. So, in order for us to be able to fulfill on a contest, there's obviously some regulatory requirements where they have to check the box. But you would be amazed at how much information you can ask from a person on a ballot that wants to win a prize to a
Oh,
week in Las
interesting.
Vegas or a free set of Callaway golf clubs. So for us, the
Yeah.
data that we collected was unbelievable. But then we also tied into all the social platforms, and we're able to pull all of that, back end Facebook data and all the other, you know, critical pieces of data. And the nice thing about what we did is because we were creating opportunities where you could increase your ballot size and the amount of ballots you had in a particular contest. And we would lock those ballots with you and your referrals. So if you won, they won, essentially, is how it worked.
Mm.
That we were able to build those databases so quickly, wrap up a tremendous amount of data with it. But we were able to integrate survey questions, app downloads, coupon conversions, likes, follows, all the things that a brand would typically have to silo multiple different ad spends and multiple different initiatives with multiple different vendors. We consolidated all of that into a single campaign. So for them, it was they sometimes didn't know what to do with the data. They're like, we've never had this much data. How do we parse it off and figure out how to use it?
Yeah.
So
It's fascinating because of this. It's again, it's like okay, we're doing this, and then we have data coming in, and okay, for an opportunity, how do you take all that data in, slice and dice, and visualize it? And then there's this opportunity down the step. Well, how did they make use of that data? And so then it goes full circle back to what you're doing on a campaign, and it's like you can see this thread of digital innovation that started with this, that led to this, led to this, led to this, circles back to there, and it starts to build on itself. And I think that's kind of where we've gotten to the point now where it's those things like it was like I said, a sort of a precious time where that worked really well. Now it's sort of a bit of the opposite. Like if you put a contest online and it'll get onto Reddit or something, and it's like, okay, you got 10 billion responses from, like outside of the market we're trying to learn anything about.
yeah,
And and it could even get ignored by the market you're looking for because they've got 50,000 things just thrown at them
yeah,
constantly. And so it's interesting because that I think is where there's a really huge opportunity. And I'm sure there's lots, probably will think of some right now, but a really huge opportunity is how can you use technology to cut through all of this and get more of the sort of a connection that's more of a personal connection, and especially when one of the biggest trends now because of all of this is this cutback on anything like personally identifiable data or any sort of data, anything that connects you with anything is getting sort of you know just disappearing. There's an opportunity out there. I just don't know if there's a way to really unpack it, but it feels like even when we're talking at the start, it's like, how do you take this grassroots sort of very personal introduction? Can you do something digital to be able to at least make it modestly scalable for a business?
yeah. And I don't know if that technology sits on the I guess the user or the person that's trying to reach that user. Like, we always talk about
Mm.
ICP. And if I could identify myself, the attributes that make me an ICP to different businesses, and only open up the doors that I want to hear from based on who I am, then what
Yeah.
it does is it filters out all the noise and only brings in the things that are important to me, and only attaches myself as the ideal customer profile to the businesses that I believe are relevant to me. So maybe it's a,
Yeah.
a technology that pushes out the other direction, then
Mm.
businesses all sort of jumping on me, and you really get to kind of water down that noise. So I don't know if it's a technology that sits sort of inside
Mm.
or a technology that sits outside. But I do agree is it would be nice to see if something else came into the world that allowed businesses to bring relevant information that is valuable and important to the right audience that is accepting and willing to hear it, because it's not buried under a million messages that mean nothing
Yeah.
to them.
Really very interesting, because that you kind of hit the nail on the head, is how do you empower people to decide what they want to see, because it's this idea that nobody ever wants to see an ad ever again. I don't think that's true.
I don't
Like
believe it's
I
true either.
really don't think that's true. um, what you described is honestly a little bit, and I'm going to admit this, and see how much friends and family are listening. um, my Facebook page is mostly it's it's almost all corporate.
Yep.
It's like breweries that I follow, and bike companies, and like watches, or whatever I do. Like, I'm following my favorite brands, and there's so many of them that I'm following, that and because I actually read the stuff, I'm like, oh, cool, that looks like a neat bike, and I'm looking at it. And once you engage with it, Facebook knows that. And so what I've done, sort of unintentionally, is my Facebook feed is probably like 80% like corporate, like businesses that I think are cool. And the odd personal ones maybe slid into there somewhere. But it's a really interesting sort of angle to take, is that I don't think it's that, yeah, people want it. They want to know if it's like, I'm in the hunt for a car. Um, I want to know if there's a deal, or I
Yeah.
want to know if there's like some offer, or is there like, for breweries, I'm like, I want to know if they're releasing the new barrel aged stout that I want to get hold of. There's information I want. And imagine if I could go and just say, yeah, no, I actually want this, like opt in, and I can review like different companies and different campaigns. Yeah, just add me to the list, because it looks like you're going to have cool stuff, right?
And you're going to be able to keep that information relevant. It's when those channels get polluted with all the non-relevant information that you just don't want, because they attach themselves to one queue, and then they all come rushing in.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be the key, is it would have to be basically blended with this massive level of privacy that says you can opt in and you can customize however you want, and that information doesn't go past your account.
Yeah.
It, like, you could supply maybe sort of non-identifiable analytics to the businesses for them to be able to justify maybe the cost of doing this or whatever. But there would have to be this wall that is would seem ludicrous 5 years ago, and now it's like, yeah, that's where it's all going anyway. So just, again, be real and be personal, and understand that people are tired of this, but there's an opportunity in all of that.
Yeah, I believe so. And the thing is, even if you looked at LinkedIn or Facebook from early inception, where it was very much sort of permission based. It was less of a sort of a free market for anyone that wants to sell anything or any item. It's kind of been watered down to that point where people are sort of getting turned off by those types of platforms, because they can't control the vast amount of messaging that's coming through.
Yeah, it's interesting, because it's kind of flies in the face of some of the things we were talking about, because it's like that's sort of like the personal, person to person. And maybe there's some potential that the thing that works is this, actually in this case, sort of a top down.
Yeah.
So it's like you find a company you're kind of interested and you kind of want to know some information about them. And then you'll work your way down and say, yeah, connect me with the CEO or the this or the marketing person or whatever it is, because I'm kind of interested in their stuff. Don't tell them that I'm following them. Right. Like
Yeah.
it's kind
Yeah.
of a weird sort of thing. Um, but I think there's room for that. I think there's space because I think people do want to hear from brands. They don't want to have a salesperson sending them a canned response and get into a drip that runs every week with just AI dribble, right? Um, there's something there. I just don't know what it is, but there's an opportunity, and that's where I think entrepreneurs are. Like, there's someone out there, probably a thousand someone's out there right now, are seeing this exact same issue and trying to figure out how do we unpack this and flip it on its head.
Well, I hope so, because you and I have sat through a tremendous amount of, you know, like any other entrepreneur, 1,000 people selling a message how to reach your audience. And
Mm-hmm.
it's coming back to basics and figuring, okay, what is going to work for us? Like, what are the things that we can do that is not what everybody else is doing and that is
Yeah,
authentic and unique and speaks to the customer in a way in which they can respond and appreciate.
yeah. And I think like there's several things that we've done recently that literally we took what the like never do this advice and we went, let's give that a try, and it's worked. We've had a number of the things work, and when we look and go, how is this working and why is it working? And I think it's because it brings it takes the AI stuff out, and it takes the some of the almost like stalkerish feeling stuff, and it just goes, it becomes a little bit real. But I'll tell you, part of it, some of it actually, I think is working because it is impersonal. It's you're
Yeah.
not standing right behind someone breathing down their neck. It's like they're kind of seeing and go, oh, that's kind of interesting. And it feels like that's what people like, just let me decide. I don't want somebody banging on my door, I don't know. I like we don't really know why,
Yeah. Well,
but we do have data,
it's
right? We have
amazing
that
that
data
when,
helps.
yeah, it's amazing when you go back to speaking your message or speaking your brand the way you want to be spoken to and the way that you want to be sold to. And when you get down to it, it's like, well, I understand why they'd want to respond. I'm now speaking from my brand and I'm selling my solution based on how I would want someone else to speak to me about their brand or sell me their
Yeah,
solution. It's come back to that more human feel instead of just, the bucket of water thrown in the face every, like you said, every week.
yeah,
It just doesn't
yeah,
work. It just doesn't work.
yeah. And it's a real balancing act. Like we're always working with that. Of it's just a balancing act. We of course we need people to know about us. Like obviously, right? Like, but it's and it's not like we can't stand in the back corner and not have anyone notice us. But it's like where is that level where it's you're being real and you're saying, hey, let me tell you about this, but don't worry, I'm not going to harass you. Like, it's the right, it's amazing because it's a very human thing. It's the right tone, like the right pace, the right, and how much of that is sort of almost gut feel, not, I'm sure if you ask chat GPT, like, how often should you send emails for it? And it'll tell you, it'll say, well, according to the experts, you should
Yeah.
be sending, 6 really shitty emails every day, like
Yeah.
it'll tell you, right.
Join the
And,
masses.
but what you're saying is exactly right. I think is that as a person, you say, well, how would I like to be marketed to, or how would I like not marketed to? How would I like someone to communicate with me that thinks they have something that can solve a problem I have? Um, and if I could put myself in their shoes, what would is there differences? What do I think they would expect from me and respect, not expect, respect from me, that would be all like something they're comfortable with and they would be appreciative of. And some of the analytics that we do now is what percentage of people write back to me and say, hey, thanks for letting me know, like this is great,
Yeah.
oh, tell me more. And okay, that's analytics. It's not like it's going down. It's a there's a big giant part of qualitative data that I think has to come back into the question, and it can't just be quantitative. I think Silicon Valley has lived on, if it's not quantitative, it's bunk for too long, and
Yeah.
it's you don't explain it that way. You explain it in a qualitative approach, I think, is how you actually figure out why things are maybe happening.
I always remember going back to the agency world where it's like, okay, do you want to educate, inform, or entertain? Right? And if you look at those sort of three principles, I'll respond to someone that sends something that's, that's entertaining and light,
Yeah,
or provides me with relevant information about the problem I'm currently in, or educates me on something I didn't know that exists to solve that problem. And
yeah,
coming back in and again, wrapping those messages around something that is of value is where we need to get to.
yeah. It's an ongoing challenge, but it's just the way to unlock things, and that's what I find honestly a little bit exciting. Is there's times where I'm like, we test it, we test. That's what we're doing. We're always testing and getting results and trying to figure out what works. And sometimes it's like, I'm kind of glad that one didn't work because I don't really think I like it that much. And then it's sometimes nice to have some validation that it's like, yeah, I'm glad that's working because I just feel like okay about it. I feel good about it. I feel like that's how I want to be treated, and it's working. So it kind of validates that. That's a nice thing to have today.
It definitely is. Yeah,
So we're yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
we've again, like you, we have tested a lot of different, I guess, opportunity to go to market with Black Owl as well. And again,
Yeah,
we've done what everyone else has done. We've sent the messages, we've sent out the emails, we've done the chat GPT, we've done it all. And again, we've turned that fully around and are actually reaching out to the individuals, like I said, that are in there every day fighting through that problem. We've
yeah,
also, we've gone to building out partner networks for individuals that are looking. Um, they have consulting businesses that assist with digital transformation, and what they want to do is just inform their clients of the best solutions out there. And
yeah,
thankfully, we're one of them, and they bring us forward to their customer and say, there's nothing in it for us except making sure that you guys have the best opportunity to put the right solutions in. And so again, it's human to human. It's a human referral. It's a trusted referral. And so we're leveraging through the trusted referral. We're leveraging through the individuals that are the lease accountants and say, listen, there's a great solution out there. We're using it. You guys should use it too, or at least take a look at it.
yeah,
And it's we've had a quantum change in the amount of sort of inbound and even outbound response that we get, because usually a lot of the outbound is a very low percentage of response, and we're getting a large percentage of response back, and it's working. And again, it's moving sort of below the masses and figuring out other things that work and coming back to that human to human referral, that testimonial,
mhm,
and building out those networks. And we've been doing those network events. We've got one coming up here. We're kind of giving all the auditors, all the accountants that are doing their audits right now. They've got a small window where they can take a break, and we're bringing them in for a beer and a biz and a networking event that's for them. Of course,
yeah,
our brand's there, and if they're interested in hearing our message, they can ask or go into the boardroom and get a demo. But for the most part, we're just opening up the room and providing the refreshments and letting these individuals, sit in a room with their peers and grumble about the audit season. So again, getting back to that human touch and that human exchange, right?
yeah. And it's interesting because we've been honestly, it's like because we talk quite often, and uh, we've sort of been doing the same sort of thing. We're testing all of this stuff. We're like, we've been doing a fairly good big shift to a lot of inbound because that's what we found that's where we're just getting success, right? And based on I'll give you some details after, but based on some of our conversations, we actually started doing a little bit of testing on kind of an outbound approach again, and I don't know, we're just doing it right this time, so it's working. But it's like just like you said, it's like um, there's no system, there's no like For a business like ours too, the other thing is this idea that it's rush to scale. It's like it's not worth doing unless it's scalable to a billion people. Like, no, that's dumb. No, it's
No.
get some client. Like you'll find something scalable as you go. You're not figuring out in the first step, and it's just interesting to start to see that these types of things. There's things that work when you're just bringing some human back into the equation, how much better things seem to work. And to me, I feel really good about it because like it feels like there's a mass stampede towards system AI. And we've tried all that stuff, like in little bursts here and there, tested it all out and went, no, I think we're actually ahead of the pack over here because we're just kind of being like a real person. That's, amazing to think that works, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, as entrepreneurs, we do this for a reason. We do it because we like to celebrate those wins, big wins, small wins. But that's where we get our energy from. And when you're actually finding something that works, and you're getting to sort of bring those wins in, on a more regular basis, it makes it all worth it. It's doing something that's not working and frustrating yourself through it, finding a way through that and finding change and finding things that work is exactly why we're here and why we put these solutions out there and why we get to celebrate those wins. And those wins aren't just our wins, they're our customers' wins, right? Getting to see them
Yeah.
solve a problem and again, turn around and be thankful for what we were able to provide, right?
Yeah, and there's nothing feels better than that when you're talking with a customer and they're just like one of our partners last week was presented to one of their clients, and it's a big business they're talking with, and they walked in and they came on, they said these guys were thrilled, and I just love to hear this, like they were thrilled. They have never seen anything like this that you have in Dryrun, and it was like that's awesome because I made him look great. I made them look great. I made their client happy. Their client knows what's happening. And it was just like, that was just a real lift when you hear that. A lot of times we don't get to talk to a lot of our customers. They just use our software and off you go. And it was really nice to see that and say like, yeah, no, we're solving a problem. And in that, in fact, we're solving two problems there. We're solving the CPA advisors problems, and we're solving this business problem, which is the pointy end of the stick, right? Their problem on cash flow. So, yeah, really, really interesting to see how that kind of comes full circle. So I want to hear a little bit. I know we've talked about Black Owl before. I would have a little trouble explaining it because I'm definitely not an accountant. But you can give the version Blaine will understand on what you guys do.
Yeah, I'll give it as light of a version as I can, and it's probably the one that people can glaze over pretty quickly when you get into accounting regulations and changes and reporting. But
Yeah.
in around January, probably 2022, was the regulation, so the AS 42 that came into effect, where they actually said that you have to report the leases differently. And the reason that they've done that is really to just put a fair comparison between two different businesses as they evaluate EBITDA and overall business performance. So they've kind of standardized the way that these leases are reported. That is a very sort of light version of it. It can get a lot more detailed into how it actually transacts from an accounting perspective. But what happened is that all of these individuals, obviously underprepared. They knew that the regulation change was going to happen, but it forced them all back into Excel. So you're either running very, very costly and expensive ERP systems, and now you're shifting back into an Excel world to manage all these leases. Now, of course, the SAP, Oracles, Microsofts of the world, built-in functionality. That functionality is very expensive to add, and that functionality just doesn't have the depth of tools that they need to really move through the leases. So in
Mhm.
came the all the entrepreneurs, the business owners that said, okay, I can do this better, and put together the third party bolt-in solutions. There was a mad rush of individuals that came in and quickly put the solutions together so they can grab as much market share as they could. And they weren't really built to sort of the level or standard that they should have been, but it was like, let's just build it as we go. And they were
Mhm.
going 100 miles an hour trying to code a solution together. And so there's a lot of individuals who will be coming through on the other side of those contracts now and going, okay, where is that great solution that took the time, put all of the knowledge and all the functionality in that really solves this problem? And that's where Black Owl, who, both Greg and Derek, CPAs, both have been on the installation side of major ERP systems, but also has worked on installing some of the competitive technology and implementing lease accounting and working those tools, came and said that there's a better solution and a better way of doing this. And they always tag their company as lease accounting software simplified. They really did put a very simple solution together to use, but highly functional in all the aspects of reporting around leasing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been phenomenal. There's when you get all of the other individuals that are still in these sort of home baked or very complex baked Excel spreadsheets that they've put together here to manage the leasing world, they're great until that person leaves the business. Once that
Mm-hmm.
individual that built it is no longer there, how do you take that and sort of work someone through a very personal type spreadsheet to get to the other side of that reporting?
Yeah.
And then on that reporting side, audits are costly. They also cost a tremendous amount of time to the business and the auditors. So when you are running a system that is prone to error,
Mm-hmm.
you really start to lean into, we need something better. And Black Owl has come into multiple industries, from oil and gas to airlines to construction. One big interior design construction build out company. There really is no business that, if they have leases, can't utilize the system. And they've solved a lot of problems for a lot of customers. And we're starting to see, as I mentioned to you before, that unbelievable referral and testimonial network that we're building through our customers. So
Yeah. It's and everyone appreciates simple and error free. And I know there's people there that are like are absolutely whizzes at a spreadsheet, but exactly like you said, that the problem is suddenly they're not available or they've left or something like that, and that knowledge goes right out the window, right, or right out the door, really. But like people still want to be able to do something simpler anyway. Like it's not like they really necessarily wanted to do it in a spreadsheet. And then on top of it, like I know studies have shown that over 80% of spreadsheets have an error, at least one, right? And when you say audit, it's like you don't want error in audit, right? So, yeah, it's a really fascinating space. I know I've talked with you and Greg a lot of times, and you guys are doing something that's just simple, straightforward, and it feels like generations ahead. That's what it feels like, because you've talked about that before. It hasn't been that long, but there was such a rush to build this first version of these tools, and you guys had the luxury of kind of coming in and going, yeah, okay, we've just saw all the rusty parts and have massively improved it. So
well, and
how can yeah
I think that
no
if
go
you've
ahead.
seen, if you it, just in the amount of time that you've spent with Greg, or even talked to Derek, you'll also see that these are two passionate individuals about their profession within the accounting space. Derek is always coined as, you got to get Derek in a box when you actually subscribe to the Black Owl solution. He is unbelievably. He loves complex problems. He loves solving them. Anything that any one of these customers has ever thrown at him, he's found a solution. And the nice thing with Black Owl, they're always there to build that functionality into the system. They're that nimble, and they have such a great team. And the way they've architected the solution is that they can get this additional functionality in very quickly, often just as in a release, or built very inexpensively. And one of the big sort of $50 billion gorillas out of Houston that we're moving very quickly with as one of our sort of newest clients on board. They used an existing system. It failed them. They tried to build their own system. It failed them. They said, okay, well, let's go back and see what else is out there. And it was astounding, the feedback that we got back from a very forensic technical audit on the solution. And to the tune of where they're excited to get this in. build a relationship with the company, and have even offered to stand on podiums in some of the biggest sort of ERP or technical shows and say, we chose them. So
Hmm.
again, celebrating those big wins, as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
to have someone waving your flag as big as a company like that, um, it's special, and it
Yeah.
means a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing what that can do for a business, what it can do for a team too. Just the validation they've been working so hard, and to have some success like that is just such a big deal. So, how can people find you guys, especially if you're looking for lease accounting? Like, how can you find you?
BlackOwlSystems.com. Fantastic website. Everything that is there, in terms of even someone that just wanted to, what is this all about? They'll get a full education there. But it also very much talks about Black Owl, who's behind it, and the reason where we are in this business and what we're trying to solve.
Well, that's terrific. Well, thanks so much again, Rob. I love like chatting. We always we
Yeah.
can go on for probably hours. We love chatting about all these types of things, and kind of. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, but this time we got to record it, which was kind of fun. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks for so much for being on the show, and everyone out there. Again, Blaine with Dryrun. If you're looking for a way to forecast your cash flow, do some scenario modeling, figure out where your business is going, or if you're a CPA and you're helping your clients figure out what's happening in their cash flow, come and talk with us, and we'll show you a much better way.